in October. I'm excited to be here with you all. I'm Margaret Ortman. I am in the part-time MBA program. I work here at the U. I am a professor who teaches school counseling and master's students and clinical mental health as well. But I'm joined by some wonderful graduates of the MBA program, which I'm going to turn it over to. Our format today is that we're going to ask them first a little bit of career overview. They're each going to take a turn to do that. We'll ask them a couple of questions I prepared, and then we'll have time.
Wait, do you guys hear her?
No.
Oh my good, Marguerite, where'd you go? Oh, that's like, Marguerite, where'd you go? It's like her, what? We can see you?
There she is.
Did I cut out? Oh my gosh.
You did.
Oh,
You did.
Okay, how far into the speech did I get? No.
You were just about to share your social security number, I think, was what you were
Great.
going
Yeah,
to tell
I
us.
heard that's what you're supposed to do on viral things. Yes,
Exactly.
but no.
Yes.
Well, welcome again. Sorry for I make a plan and throw it out the window. But I'm Margaret Ortman. I work here at the U. I'm in the part-time MBA program, and I'm joined by some wonderful graduates of our MBA program, which I'm going to turn it over to them. We're going to have them each share a little bit about their career journey and then ask them some questions. And then you all have a chance to ask questions too, either in the chat or you can throughout the day today. So thank you all for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to Chelsea.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So my name's Chelsea Schwartz. I currently work at Vector Systems. It's a B2B air care and hygiene company. So for commercial spaces, if you walk in and you smell fragrance, my company does things like that. So I've worked here for about 2.5 years, and I got my MBA part-time about 7 years ago. A little bit about my background. I started out from undergrad in event planning. Thought I was going to do that my whole life, and then the recession hit. So I quickly changed over to whatever marketing role I could find at the time because it was a down economy, and I landed at an engineering construction firm doing marketing for a consulting organization. So selling services really. And I actually loved it. It was really interesting to learn about like the work we were doing. You could go walk outside and see a bridge that was built that you helped pull together a proposal for and win. So I stayed there for a couple of years. Really ultimately didn't like my boss. I had quite a bad boss who was at the time in a different location. And this was before remote work was really the norm. And having bosses in another location was really the norm. And so just that wasn't a great experience. So decided to leave and did a few different elements of marketing, spent some time in website project management, spent a little bit of time at a cake decoration company doing more traditional product management, and then made my way back to the engineering company where I could really kind of set exactly what I wanted the role to be as I went forward. That's when I started my MBA part-time. Did that in about 2.5 years, and then participated in on-campus recruiting and landed at Ecolab from there. Spent 5 years at Ecolab in 4 different roles across 2 businesses. So got to do a lot of great things in portfolio management, more traditional marketing, kind of sales marketing arms of the business. And then had the opportunity to move over to Vector, like I said, about 2.5 years ago, and lead the marketing function here. So now I get to dip my hands in a little bit of everything every day. A bit smaller company. We're about 70 people across 2 offices globally. And so a bit smaller company, but I've really, really enjoyed being able to kind of get into everything. So that is a little bit of my background.
Okay, I'll jump in. I'm Megan Elliott. Okay, let's see. I'm from Maple Grove. I went to school out of state. I went to Mizzou, and at Mizzou, I got an internship with Hormel Foods. So I knew I wanted to eventually make it back to Minnesota. And so I picked a Minnesota-based company. But right out of school, I did start my sales training in Michigan. So I lived in Detroit for a little while. Then I moved to Ohio. I had a couple different roles on the Kroger team. So I did an analytics role as well as a sales role, calling on Kroger. And then I moved to the corporate office of Hormel Foods, the global headquarters in Austin, Minnesota. Many of you might be familiar. It's a very small town. So I like to joke that it's their global headquarters, but it is. And so I lived there for about 7 years and worked in a variety of different marketing roles. So continued to progress through brand management of associate marketing manager, senior brand manager. And about 5.5 years into my career, and once I was in Austin, I did pursue my MBA, and I started in the fall of 2017 and then graduated in 2020. So I did that while working in Austin, had the opportunity, obviously being in the state, I was only an hour and a half away from campus. So I came up for a class a semester. I thought that was really beneficial to be in person and to be able to network with the part-time program students. So that was awesome. I continued at Hormel until 2021. So I was there for almost 10 years, which is really amazing. And then I engaged the career services through the part-time program. So Bridget helped me. I said, I've only worked for Hormel for almost 10 years. I would like to do something different. And I wanted to stay within brand management. So my MBA was really in service of career acceleration. And so I started the job search, and I wanted to be in Minneapolis. And so I came to Schwann's, which is super exciting. I've been here for 3 years now, and I'm currently I came in as the senior marketing manager on Bibigo, so a Korean food brand. And now I oversee all the Asian brands for consumer brands. So we have a whole portfolio, including Bibigo, Pagoda, Annie Chun's, Kahiki, Min. So a variety of different brands that you can find, club, retail, ethnic channel, etc. So Schwann's was acquired in 2019 by CJ. It's a South Korean company. And so it's super exciting to be on, all the Asian brands. I've gotten to go to Seoul, which was amazing, to kind of see the headquarters and to see where Bibigo really originated, because it is a global brand. So it's been a wonderful experience. And yeah, that's me. That's me.
Thanks, Megan. All right, I will go next. My name is Sarah Menessy. I am currently a senior product manager at Medline. The quick career journey, if you will. I went to the U of M, University of Minnesota, for my undergrad, but I did political science with a minor in business. I thought I was going to be like a corporate attorney. That was my passion at the time. Graduated, did a program management role, and very quickly loved the business side of it and wanted to do more of that and less of anything else, to be honest. That is kind of the direction and the reason that I went and pursued my MBA. I did a part-time MBA. I think it was 2017 as well. And I did also graduate in May of 2020. But yeah, I did the part-time MBA program to help me kind of pivot, if you will, within my career journey and accelerate my career journey as well. During my MBA program, I worked for Wells Fargo as a product manager. I was working on digital financial services products. So worked on several new product introductions, as well as during my time with Wells Fargo, our division was sold to another bank out of the UK. And so then my role became part of kind of assessing some of the products that were in the UK and whether or not we can localize them and launch them in the US. In that role, I did actually launch one of the products here in the US, and around that time was when I was graduating. So I also reached out to Bridget and talked to her about just wanting one thing that I had missed as part of that acquisition was when I was part of Wells Fargo. Obviously, it's a very large company, many employees, many roles. There was constant movement and constant opportunities to like explore your next role, that kind of thing. Post acquisition, it became quite a small company where there wasn't that many opportunities to try something new. And at the time I had been doing many of the same products for a while, and I was ready for something new. So I did the Green Light program and found Ecolab through the on-campus recruitment program. So that took me to Ecolab. I was at Ecolab Healthcare for about 4 years. I did 4 roles during that time. The last one, though, I got like 2 weeks before the divestment of the surgical business, which is why I left Ecolab. So I was in a program management role, I was in an innovation role, and then a portfolio management role, all within healthcare. And then Ecolab divested the surgical business. So I've now become an expert at divestments and acquisitions as it relates to the transition, not something that I thought I'd go. Here we are. So as of August 1st, the entire healthcare division, or at least the surgical portion of the Ecolab healthcare division, is now part of Medline. And so currently a Medline employee. I've got portfolio management responsibilities. I've got 3 different portfolios and a direct report. So that was kind of also a fun learning experience that I'm working through at the moment, if you will. But yeah, just a couple of months in. So Medline's a very fast company. They are healthcare distribution. They're currently private. They're quite large, about 23 billion. But yeah, nothing more to say from here. But yes, that is the quick summary of where we're at.
Well, I will go next. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, perfect. I'm Zach Schwartz, and I do know Chelsea Schwartz. She is my wife. We actually met in the MBA program, so I was a little bit behind her in graduating, but we shared a few classes together and bonded over the after hours being in the part-time MBA program. My career has always been in marketing. My first job at a school was with Target as a business analyst. So I started there, and similarly as things slowed down there, I've found myself kind of gravitating back to communications and public affairs roles. So I worked in a variety of different roles over the years in small business communications, in public affairs, public policy, work on behalf of small business, also at Xcel Energy, and some public relations work in kind of that blend of, where you're advocating for businesses, but also trying to influence policy. And along the way, I reflected on, that trajectory of, if you want to really progress in your career in public affairs, you kind of move into that lawyer track and lobbying as a next step. And that wasn't really something that appealed to me. And as I thought about what I wanted to do, pursuing my MBA was kind of top of that list. And I, through the Career Center, was able to find a role with a small retailer that's based out of Minnesota called Rockler Companies. And I was there for a few years while pursuing my MBA. That got me kind of back into a product marketing track, which is where I wanted to see my career going. And then upon graduation, as many of you, I'm sure, are exploring, or as many on this call or panel have discussed, there's a really great opportunity as you graduate to make that jump into a new role. And often we have all found that through the Career Center. That role for me was with Schwann's as well. So prior to my current job, I was with Schwann's in their food service division. So outside of Megan's experience, they have a whole other side of the business that is really more B2B, selling their products that go into different food service applications. So you're selling the ingredients that are sold in either schools or restaurants. Some of the brands are similar. Products are generally different because one's geared towards that retail grocery audience, and mine was in that food service space. I was specifically on the K-12 food service business, so working on the marketing plans and new product launch or product launches for the K-12 segment, which was a huge part of their business over at Schwann's Food Service, and specifically got to work on some new product concepting and launches just as we were coming out of the pandemic in the breakfast space. So I got to launch a breakfast bagel product that is now I'm not sure how it's doing anymore, but at the time, really high growth area in the K-12 segment is breakfast, as more students are eating at school and schools are offering more options for that. So that was a really exciting project to work on. And along the way, I was recruited by an agency, Curious Plot, where I now work to basically flip sides. So as a post-MBA marketer, I was in a marketing manager role or an associate marketing manager role in the K-12 business. This agency had recently acquired the business from the Land O'Lakes food service business, and we're looking for somebody to lead that and also grow within the agency that practice in general. And so I kind of switched sides over to the agency side, and that's where I've been for the last 3 years. I support a variety of clients, as mentioned. Land O'Lakes Food Service is one of those anchor clients in my portfolio, but also support our agency covers kind of the gamut of, like, we like to call it from seed to plate. So there's a lot of business that we do that's on the ag input side. So that's like crop protections, things related to farming and farm inputs. And then on the food side, it's everything from generating demand for produce and product categories. Some of our clients include the World Macadamia Organization, so promoting macadamias as a consumer product, as a category in general. The Mushroom Council is also another group that we represent. Tart cherry, the tart cherry industry is another client that we recently picked up that I lead some efforts for. And then, interestingly enough, Cotton Incorporated has a side that sells a cotton byproduct, cottonseed oil, into the food space, and that's another client we carry. So broad range of clients, but all kind of centered on how we bring those to life in the food and food service space. So that is where my time has been. And actually, I just got back from a photo shoot or a reel shoot that we did on site at, some of you may know the restaurant St. Dinette, but we're doing a partnership with Tim Niver, who's the restaurant owner there, also an on-camera talent. He has his own podcast that we want our brand associated with. And so we were helping coordinate and make sure the messaging in that video shoot was accurate for our client. So Chelsea was texting me right before I got back here to sign on to the panel of whether or not I was going to actually make it, but I'm here.
Thank you, Zach. We're glad you made it from the photo shoot. That's wonderful. Thank you all for sharing about your career path and your journey. Very interesting. I need to go look what a cottonseed is now, cottonseed oil. But our next question was just kind of asking about, more specifically, about maybe the scope of like what your typical day looks like, skills you use, challenges you encountered. You can be a specific project or just kind of in general, like what you see in the day to day. Because I know in the MBA program, we're learning so much about different things. Like, what does that look like in practice? And so I'm gonna put it back to Chelsea. We'll keep going in order. That's okay.
Sure. So I would say a typical day for me, I manage all the marketing functions. So I can start my day talking about the status of our innovation pipeline and what projects are moving forward, if there's any key decisions we need to make. That usually happens a couple of times within my week. I work really closely with our R&D team on that. We're currently going through a rebrand and a website relaunch. So spending a lot of time right now on kind of the content structure of the website. What are we pulling over? What are we rewriting? How are we going to launch the brand itself? What does that launch campaign look like? Working with my team on how we want that to execute. And then working really closely with our sales team as well, whether it's key customers that we are pitching to get our product into, say, new distribution. We'll work really closely on a lot of those pitches and, helping our sales team really accelerate sales through the channels that they're in today. So I would say marketing also within our organization is the function that kind of gets pulled into the ambiguous challenges or ambiguous projects that we have. So I kind of get involved in a little bit of everything day in and day out. I would say I spend a good amount of time in spreadsheets, analyzing data, looking at our sales, and trying to figure out what we can do to help accelerate sales in different areas. Or it's trying to figure out a problem. Why is XYZ thing happening? What's going on there? So my day really, every day looks different. I really like that about kind of a small business environment that I'm in, is we get pulled into a ton of different things every day. I get to learn a lot about really how we go from an idea of a product to the very end of where we sell the product, and then continuing to support customers down the road. So, my biggest challenge is kind of working through to balance a lot of that. So kind of your own time management, keeping your own priorities at the forefront, when you often get pulled into helping solve other people's problems in the business, or other kind of functional challenges within the business. Because marketing just tends to have a really nice view of everything that's going on. So I think we have kind of a unique capability to take a step back and not look at it only from our function, but to help identify like what's going on more broadly across the organization. So those are kind of some of the things I get pulled into day in and day out.
Okay, my turn. Chelsea, same. Like there's so much going on every day. It's super dynamic and very fun. I have a team as well, so I have 9 individuals on my team, and 2 of my senior managers are located in LA. So then I have a little bit of like that dynamic too, of them being remote and not here in the office. So I get to be the face a lot of times of like any of their stuff too. Also, Zach, we do still sell the bagel item. So I checked with food service. We do.
Oh,
It's doing okay.
I'm
Yeah.
aware.
So
Yeah.
yeah, very fun. Congrats. Okay, so I wasn't going to do day to day. I was just going to talk a little bit about a specific project that's one of our big focuses as we head into 2025, and have been working on it for about a year now. So wanted to just highlight kind of some of the like steps that we took and skill sets that I found that were helpful in like moving this project forward. It's a very big initiative for us. So it relates to innovation. It's not a bagel, sorry, but it is super exciting space. So about a year ago, we identified that a portion of our product line is not performing very well. So we went and kind of did some strategic work related to like where we want to go with this line of items, how we want to think about it. We did, our jobs to be done analysis. We did our need state analysis, and we created we also looked at category. And so then we created a strategic direction and a plan that we got buy-in from all levels of the organization as to this is how we're going to solve this challenge, and here's the white space that we're going to pursue in order to really win in the market. So it's a completely new category that this is a BBGO project, sorry, that the BBGO brand will be launching in next year. And so once everybody was like, yes, this is the direction, this is the space that we should be pursuing, obviously product development had to take place. So we had the opportunity to go to LA and to go to Koreatown, because BBGO is a Korean brand. So we wanted to really bring like authentic recipes to the marketplace. And we ate at like 18 different restaurants. It was insane. It was so fun. We took a cross-functional team of team members there. So we had people from Korea come, we had culinary support, R&D, consumer insights. Yeah, poor me, right? It was such a tough day, tough couple of days at the office. But we were able to develop 6 new items. We brought those recipes back to a leadership team. So I created a cross-functional coalition but of leaders. So this was a new way of doing things, and we have not done this in like this like prescriptive of a way at the organization, and allowed us to move really fast. So because it's BBGO, and there's a lot of stakeholders on this particular brand, there is quite a few people that are involved. And so to bring them all together in monthly meetings was super critical for us to, accelerate decisions and the development. Okay, thanks. Good. I keeps popping up. I got the bagel. And so within that meeting, we were able to, taste different recipes as we progressed along, and we looked at P&Ls, we looked at, where we're going to manufacture this, et cetera. So anyways, that like, I think the the thinking differently about how we're going to get this to market as soon as possible was one thing that's made us successful in doing this. We're now like a blueprint for some of the other teams as to how to take some of these high profile, like big bet innovation opportunities and leverage this path that we've created. So that's super exciting. One of the recent challenges, and this is what my like daily has been for the last couple weeks, is we are launching. We told our whole entire sales team about 6 weeks ago, like this is the big bet innovation. This is what we want you to go sell. I had the opportunity to go to Kroger and Walmart for innovation summits and pitch the lineup of items. And there's insane amounts of excitement from the retail community, which is so exciting. I've never been a part of a launch like this, like where you just get this immediate response. Target has already accepted it. And the retailers are looking to accelerate their reset timeframes, which again, doesn't typically happen. And so there's like a lot of momentum behind it. Now I've launched a lot of items, mostly pork. I know a lot about the pig coming from Hormel, a lot of pork items. This is insane. Like the excitement and volume opportunities that are coming our way. So our initial forecast was, roughly a handful of million units for the first year. We plan to scale this business to 100 million in the next 3 years. We are looking at 3 to 4 times what we originally assumed for year 1 in terms of volume. And so that has created a lot of challenges, which this is what I've been working on for the last few weeks, related to where we're going to make this and how we're going to make our network work best for us. And so we believe we have a solution, so that's good. So we can launch with, there was questions out there about, are we gonna have to pull back? Are we not gonna be able to sell this to certain retailers? Which we do not want to stall any of the momentum that we have here. So a lot of that, like what I've found through a lot of those conversations is bringing people together, relationship building. Like I have created a lot of relationships with various cross-functional team members that have allowed me then to go directly to them, kind of cut through some of the red tape and get everybody all on the same page. So I would say a lot of this is bringing people a lot of what I do, and this particular project to be successful is really about bringing the right people together, having those relationships to, bring up problems and, create solutions. So that, again, I think we found a solution. Super excited, but that's what I have. Also look for the items in roughly, so one retailer will be shipping in January, but Target will be in April. So April and you're near your local Target. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
So different problem, but same skills that you kind of described, Megan, are the same skills that help you get through any of these marketing challenges. But for me, I'll also share a recent challenge or project that I'm working on. As you can imagine, as part of integrating 2 companies, there are SKUs in your portfolio that are duplicates. There are SKUs that are different. There are SKUs you want to keep. There are SKUs you don't. You don't actually know what you want to keep just yet. So that's been a lot of what we've been working on since close, since the past 2 months, if you will. Is kind of understanding what we want in our portfolio. Some of the SKUs in the various portfolios were more premium differentiated products. Some of them were not. Some of them were just cost competitive, low cost solutions for more price sensitive customers. How do you want to bring those 2 together into one portfolio? Do you not want to service a certain segment of the market, just figuring out who we want to be, what we want our portfolio to be, the analysis around that, everything around who's going to make it. As you can imagine, we all have our different suppliers, figuring out, do we want to, are we able to have this be from a small subset of suppliers that we would have and be able to, leverage the volumes to get better costing, or what exactly are we going to do? Can our suppliers meet all of our combined capacity? Many of these initial questions, just the day-to-day analysis to be able to understand even where to start, what to begin, what's going to get cut, SKU rationalization, all of that. So that's been my life for the last 2 months, is kind of figuring out portfolio harmonization and then the larger impact that it will have on the overall strategy for the portfolio that we will keep. Day-to-day looks like a various mix of any of those elements, whether it's the sourcing conversation, today's been heavy on the sourcing conversations, or whether it's the strategy conversations of who we want to be, where we want to compete, which segments we want to target, what price points are we going to have, how are we going to ensure pricing consistency throughout the various channels that now the two companies together sell under. So that's kind of what day-to-day looks like. Many of the skills Megan noted are the same here for what would make you successful. I would say largely knowing how to pull a cross-functional team together, how to influence and lead people that are not your direct reports across many different functions to the same outcome, and hopefully a harmonized outcome. And then for this acquisition, for example, for Medline was the largest acquisition they've ever done. It was $1 billion acquisition. So it's quite large. So as you can imagine, there are huge synergies targets related to these portfolio harmonizations that we are talking about. So making sure that we're constantly communicating like when these savings will hit, how exactly we're going to do it, where the roadblocks are, just constant communication and updates, and just figuring out that right balance of when you do need to update, when you don't need to update, and yeah, when to ask you, and just how to get everyone aligned and on the same page and with the same goal without that direct responsibility report for many of the people that you need to work with daily.
Great. Well, I'll speak at a high level to a activity that I'm sure everybody on the panel speaks to, but kind of from a different side. So one of the projects that we work on for every client is your annual planning. And that's really developing your marketing plan, strategy, and approach. And as the agency partner, we're a key contributor to that. So, whether it's working with Megan as her agency partner to bring to life the brand launch plan and what media elements are going to take place for that, we're in that role for our clients saying, okay, what do we align on from a strategy? So I would work with a counterpart for my clients like a Megan, who would tell me, here's our opportunity, here's the insights that and our opportunity to win. You help me come up with the plan to bring those to life in the market through the advertising campaign, through brand activations, through different unique partnerships. And so we're in the throes of that right now. It's a lot of the same skills that everyone has spoken to about that ability to influence people who are not your direct reports and a broad cross-functional team. So from my perspective, I should have mentioned that I'm on the account side. So I'm an account supervisor. And that's really the hub of all activities that happen within the agency. So when we bring a group together at the agency for annual planning, that includes your creative teams, your content teams, your PR teams, all the different, what we refer to as functions within the agency that contribute to bringing those plans to life. And as they mentioned, like they're not responsible to me, but all of their activity brings to life what we are going to do for our clients and to bring their plans to life. And so it's really important that I can get all those different stakeholders kind of paying attention to what's important to my client and make sure that I'm communicating all that information coming from the client side so that we have that deep understanding of what the challenge is, what the opportunity is. So a lot of that is translating into really succinct, tight marketing briefs. So the client might give us a brief for an annual plan. And then I have to massage that, look for different, open-ended questions or things to clarify coming from the client side, and then really make that tight for our agency so that they understand it, because they may not be subject matter experts in everything that the client is related to. So, but what they are experts in is bringing to life that idea creatively or writing the content to make a compelling campaign. And so it's really that ability to influence, that ability to lead cross-functional teams. And then I won't discount the business side of it. So as in a post MBA role in an agency, you're not only leading a team of account people. So I have a team of right now 2 account execs that I'll lead. And then all of those functions, I'm ultimately responsible for their time and hours and budgets to bring my project to life. So, you know, an example of one major project we have upcoming at the end of October is a huge photo shoot that we are planning to bring a lot of content to life for Land O'Lakes food service in the restaurant space. And so the client said, we want, you know, this new change in our look and our feel of our of the assets and ads we bring to life. You know, our creative team provided a vision for how that could come to life. But then we had to work on, okay, what are the nuts and bolts behind the dollars to bring that shoot to life? And so my role and my team's role is, you know, helping ensure that all those different elements of that shoot are within budget, aligned to the client's vision, aligned to our vision, and all ladder up to that annual strategy and what kind of becomes a 3 to 5 year strategy to make sure that, you know, you're able to have the assets to bring the campaigns to life. So you know, on the agency side, you're really an extension of the brand marketing team or product marketing team on the relationship with the client and the goal there.
Great. Thank you all. That was so interesting. Everyone has such different experiences day to day, but all very busy. Sounds like not a dull moment. Some really interesting products coming through too. Our next we're doing a kind of a wild card question now. I've given you all, hopefully you can see those in the chat before about a question you want to answer. If anyone wants to jump in and share, I know one thing I always want to know too, what advice do you give? It sounds like many of you were in the part-time, you did the MBA and then jumped fields or moved up for advancement. I know many of this in the call. I recognize some names in the call. I know some of us are graduating in May. Some have another year, myself. Maybe even some advice you would give all of us too. So I'm gonna let you kind of jump in. Like Chelsea, anything that you want to share or any of those questions that
Sure.
spoke to you?
Yeah, looking through some of the questions, I think one of the ones that resonated with me was, you know, I didn't change functional careers, but I went from services marketing to product marketing, which on the surface are very, very different. And so some advice I would say is if you're looking to, whether it's changing from one function to another or an industry to another, really spend some time thinking about what are the common threads that it doesn't matter if you're selling a service or you're selling a product at the end of the day. So for me, I spent a lot of time as I was getting ready for recruiting and going through interviews and things like that, figuring out how to tell my story around why my background in services marketing was actually like a unique advantage for me versus, you know, the people I was ultimately competing with for these jobs. And so, you know, what I talked a lot about with services marketing was just how well I had to know my customer, because I wasn't marketing to this broad group of, you know, you have your personas when you're in marketing a lot of the times, and it's, you know, 45-year-old male who is the leader of sales, has 2 kids, you know, lives in North Carolina. I knew the exact details about who I was selling to in services marketing. And so it allowed me to have this like really super focus on articulating the benefits to those customers so clearly, because I didn't have this like generic persona. I knew that I was selling to a specific person and I had to figure out what their needs were and tailor how we were talking about things and what our message was to an actual individual. And so that's kind of how I ended up telling a lot of my story, was what made me unique and different was about really my hyper focus on voice of the customer and what customers need. And so figure that out for yourself, especially if you are career like functional changes or trying to go into a different industry. use that as an advantage. It is not a disadvantage. You bring a unique perspective and just really work on how to tell that story. So out of those questions, I would say that was kind of the one that resonated with me initially.
I'll build on that if you want to keep going in this, or did you want people to popcorn? But I will build on it because I would say as I obviously engaged the career services to help me. I was like, I don't even know how to do a resume because I had the job, right? I had the same job, or worked at the same company for so long. So I also had to like think about, as I was looking elsewhere, was how to position my experience and how to like come across as the best candidate. So I would say like engage that service that we have through Carlson. That was super helpful. I also found networking was really great. So, right, made the hit list, you know, on who I wanted, like what companies I was interested in, and then was like, okay, what connections can I find there? So like you just got to like informal, understand a little bit about the company, the culture, because for me, like culture was super important. I had a great culture at Hormel. Like I really enjoyed that. That was all I knew, but I also really enjoyed it. And I would never say anything bad. I still have amazing friends there. It was such a good company to work for. But as I was moving, I was pretty worried about that. It's like, what is this cultural shift going to be? And that part, actually, I was just interviewing for with the full-time school or full-time program on Monday. So I came to campus for the first time in a very long time. It was so fun. I know I didn't see you. And so that's like one of the first things that we kind of try to gauge is like, is this a cultural fit? Because a lot of skills can be taught. And so, yes, you may be a career like pivoter or shifter and have like a different background, like still like you can teach a lot of like skills. And as long as you have some of them, like, you know, but I think the culture piece is really big. So start to think about what's important to you and like what questions to ask in either informal interviews or even interviews to kind of get a sense for what that's like on a day-to-day basis. So that's mine.
I can take the question from Luke in the chat about classes. So take this with a grain of salt because it's been 4 years, so I don't actually remember the exact name. But if I were to say something as it relates to the classes that were most helpful, things around like marketing strategy, being able to understand. So like, I think Chelsea was talking about this early about taking an idea all the way to like launching it and commercializing it. You really can't do that without that proper understanding of like a framework that you can leverage and use over and over again, regardless of what industry you're in, what company you're at, that kind of stuff. So like an example that I have is even last week, one of my salespeople was telling me like, hey, I see this. I really think that we could do this if we modify one of our, you know, capital equipment that we sell for healthcare. If we can modify it to do X, Y, and Z, it would it'd untap this other market. Okay, great, wonderful. This is an awesome idea. He's got some customers that you can talk to, that kind of thing. But like, how do you go from idea to sizing it, sizing the market, sizing it in terms of like the size, all of it, sizing the market, figuring out, is this even worth it? What kind of investment that would be? And then taking it all the way through, like, does this fit with your core competencies as a company? You know, when I was at Ecolab, does this fit within Ecolab's core competencies? That's very different than if it's going to fit under us now being sold to Medline. Medline's core competencies are very different than Ecolab. So like being able to do that, and even being one of the things that is on our long list of integration stuff, there are many ideas that we killed when we were at Ecolab because it just did not fit with how we compete, how we go to business, how we win at Ecolab, but they actually align beautifully and perfectly under Medline's capabilities and scale and size, and specifically just healthcare, where we're going to have to take all of those projects back through the sizing process, working through that strategy again. So all of that to say, long answer to say, your class is focused on marketing strategy. And the big piece is just learning the framework so that you can do the same thing as it relates to thinking through all the pieces without having, regardless of what the problem is, what the question is, just having that framework that you can use over and over again, which is also a wonderful framework for your behavioral, your questions, your technical questions, so they're called on the interviews, your interviews that you'll be doing at some point. Wonderful framework to use there, obviously on a much quicker and smaller and not enough information, but it's all the same thing. It's the same framework. It's the same process.
And I'll just reiterate that, you know, on the agency side, this applies to various work that we do. So from internal, what we call account planning. So when you're saying, how do you grow, like we want to grow our relationships further with our clients, and we use those marketing frameworks to to evaluate the clients, to identify opportunities, and then we also use them for new business pitches. So when we're I just had a great example pitching Pilgrim's Food Service. So they're the chicken manufacturer. And my role was, you know, hey, you understand this industry the best. Bring forward a strategic framework. You know, most of the people that you're working with in the agency side, a lot of your collaborators don't have that business side training, and so they love the big idea. They love how to bring it to life creatively. And so bringing forward that strategy is really important. And that ended up being a huge differentiator in our pitch of how we said, well, this is how we would, you know, frame this up. And it was the same framework that I used to lay out my annual planning framework with Land O'Lakes Food Service. So you find those things that you're picking up in those marketing strategy or even brand strategy classes, some things that you're using over and over again in marketing.
I would add on one other class that I really loved was Persuasion and Influence. I'm not sure if it's still a class or not, but that not only was like such a fun class to take, you heard all of us say in some way, shape, or form, we are influencing directly or indirectly, whether it's our direct reports or it's cross-functional teams we're working with. You are constantly influencing. And so that was a wonderful class to take. And I don't know if this is really a class offered so much as it's maybe something you can do through like the Career Center. But I think understanding your personality and your communication styles is really important as well, because you are having lots of cross-functional communication, working with all different personality types. And so I'm a big advocate of the more awareness you have about yourself, the better you're going to be able to communicate with others, and quickly identify what others need to be communicated with. Because, you know, the platinum rule is communicate with others how they want to be communicated with. So I would say, you know, take advantage of any of those maybe more informal tools that might be offered at Carlson that aren't maybe a class.
I'll build on your comment, Sarah, in the chat that storytelling is really important. You know, whether that's learning how to build presentations or distinctly getting your point across. I'm known for like being long-winded, and in the agency world, it's about tightening up your communication, and it's the same in anything. That's part of the whole, like, I need this done. What's the quickest way? Like, people are overwhelmed with information and data in today's world, and so the more clear you can make communication of what you need from them, but also getting that point across succinctly. So whether it's like putting it in bulleted format, not like having a one page or like a full page narrative of your plan. I know Chelsea and I talk about this a lot, like just being able to put it on a slide with like a single slide or a very quick email for somebody to read and react to very quickly. Like that storytelling aspect is really key. And the more you can do that on your own, the less you have to lean on others or partners, you know, at the agency. You're like, I like to put together an outline with that succinct narrative, and then I can go to a creative partner to kind of make it look pretty in a client pitch. But the more you can do that yourself, the less you also lean on others for some of that type of work. So really, like, you know, using the opportunities when you're presenting to create like tight, nice looking, emphatic PowerPoint slides or presentation slides is also really important too. It's a unique skill to have that I know some members of the agency I've picked up a lot on the account side, where we don't have to go to a creative partner because we know this person has a great template or a great way of presenting things that emphasize certain points for the client really well. So I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I met with our CMO yesterday and he was like, we had a company town hall and he was like, do you see the power of storytelling? So we are very much, we talk about storytelling a lot and just how impactful it can be, whether it's in like a company town hall, whether it's like communicating a project or whatever. It's a super great skill. I will make a plug for the global program from a class standpoint. I had the best experience. I went to China in 2019 and it was an amazing experience. Went early with a couple classmates that I really didn't know and now we're very good friends. Like that's like a really like, I don't know, that program taught me a lot about, and it was able to help me when I did do my job search because a lot of them worked at various different places and it was so casual then to be like, call Mike from General Mills and ask him like, what do you think of General Mills? Even if it wasn't in the same function. I wasn't in many in-person classes, right? I said I came up for like a class this semester. So that one really helped develop some like nice fast friendships that I felt comfortable in engaging and still would feel comfortable today to call up many of those individuals from that particular class. So I thought that's my favorite one. Yeah. Oh, I love that. We should go to Seoul and everybody do a global project there. Yeah. You guys are invited too. Chelsea.
Totally.
Zach,
Sorry,
yeah.
that was me. I was like, oh my God, Megan, can we get CJ to host a project in
Oh yeah, she
Yeah.
sent that just to me. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just
Ah.
interested, but I was like, for real,
It's
Like
all
like,
reading
good,
the
Chelsea.
chat. Sorry.
like, why haven't we? What a wonder, because I mean, how wonderful. Like,
Yeah.
it started here and then you can all come as alumni advisors.
I love it.
The
I just
net-
invited you via private chat. Sorry. Yeah.
No.
So,
I know it was mentioned a couple times too, but the networking component of Carlson, like, don't be afraid to reach out to like with tools like LinkedIn or resources like Bridget. You know, like it's been great for me in my career just to connect with, hey, is there somebody you know at this organization that I can reach out to? I know early in my career, Bridget would just give me a name. She didn't necessarily even make an introduction all the time. But that's all you need to really open the door for those conversations. And I think to Megan's example, like through this type of networking, I've met people in the full-time program, even though I was part-time, like even just attending the company info sessions and sitting down next to somebody and putting yourself out there to start a conversation. Like Chelsea and I had dinner the other week with a friend from the full-time program who ended up an intern at Schwann's, who I then worked with, who we've remained in contact with, and she's somewhere else now. So, the networking effect of the Carlson MBA program was like probably 90% of the reason why it was worth the value that it was in terms of what you're paying for it, from my perspective. And I like this type of activity is really what brought that to life and made it worth it. But you have to put yourself out there to get the most out of that too.
100%. I think I even interviewed with you, Zach. I don't know if you remember, but I do
Yeah,
remember an
I look
informal
really,
coffee
really,
chat.
yeah. I was like,
Yes, I remember that. But yes,
that's great.
it's
Great.
small
I think
world.
this is
Get connected,
probably,
own it.
yeah, this is probably the best way to end things, is to just remind everyone of that amazing Carlson community, that there's usually 1 degree of separation between everybody. Margaret, is there anything you'd like to say before we let our attendees get back to work?
No, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Bridget. Thank you, Nicole wasn't here. Students, thank you all for coming. We're going to do this again in February and then back in April too. So we'll have some different panelists. So thank you all for being part of this. I appreciate it and hope you all enjoy this beautiful fall day in 80-degree weather.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
thank you.